Welcome back. What's going on? Hey guys, we got a special show tonight. Hit the like button. This is a big one. Well, we'll get there. We'll get there in a second. We got a special guest joining us tonight. His name's CivDiv. You can find him youtube.com/CivDiv. I've got a link for that in the stream description. Hit the like button, jump in the chat. Let me know where you guys are chiming in from. I love you and it's good to be here. What's going on? We'll get to the... He just left. He's really creepy. He's behind me. I know you guys can see him. There's a reason that he's behind me. We'll get there. I'll get there in a second. It's kind of creepy, but it's the best way I could figure to set up the overlays based on the equipment I've got at hand. What's going on, folks? All right, let's kill the music. We've got a lot to talk about. Obviously, yes, we do have CivDiv here with us. We're going to spend quite a majority of the day just talking to him, getting his opinion on, different things. I'll fire up a live Q&A at some point for you guys to, bounce some questions off of him. And we're not just going to be talking about Ukraine, right? We've got some questions for him about some of his other work that he's done, really just get to know him a little bit more. And I'll let him do the introductions for himself when we get there. We are going to talk about the Patriot missile batteries that the U.S. is poised to be sending to Ukraine. I've talked quite a bit about that in the past, about the necessity to provide those defensive posture weapons to protect metropolitan areas, to protect, the populace, the non-combatant populace that's being targeted actively. And we're also going to bounce that off of CivDiv. Right. Him being here is again, this is not supposed to be some kind of a clean cut, perfectly produced. We don't have a producer. I am the producer. Well, hi, pleasure to meet you, producer. This is supposed to be a hangout, right? That's what we do. That's what we started when we initially ramped up the live stream, is connected the Funker 530 community over, current situation. This current situation that we've covered most often is Ukraine. So what's going on, guys? We got folks in from Tennessee. Where are you? Come on, jump in with me. Hendersonville, Tennessee. Netherlands. What's up, folks? CivDiv's one cool brother in arms. I can't disagree with you, and we'll be talking to him here in just a second. He's creeping, looking behind me, and Josh thinks we look alike. He thinks that we look like the exact same person. Without further ado, let's bring Corey in from CivDiv. Just got to remember. Here it is. There he is. Corey, say hello, buddy.
Hello. I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good, man. It's good to talk to you. We spent some time earlier today trying to set up all of our stuff, all of the overlays, which was absolutely hilarious. Talking about immediate action drills on an iPad to get that to orient properly. It looks like you've already done your immediate action drill.
Yeah, right at the start, yeah.
Do us a favor, do everybody a favor, and just kind of introduce yourself. We'll get into some questions about your work. We'll have some discussions about that. But introduce Corey for everybody.
Yes. All right. So as we were saying earlier off the live stream, I'm 5'4". I'm a manlet, and I saw some comments about me looking like Shia LaBeouf. I used to look like Shia LaBeouf. My girlfriend made me cut my hair. So that's a little bit about my personal life. But no, I was in the Marine Corps for 2 years, got out with an administrative discharge. And I did something silly. I went to Syria with the YPG in 2018, 2019. After that, I started living in a van, which is what I'm live streaming in right now. And then I went to YBS, which is in Iraq. It's like another Kurdish group out there. And then most recently, I was in Ukraine, which probably a lot of people know me from. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say almost an overwhelming amount of the folks that know of you, at least in the present tense, know because of your work in Ukraine, because of really how much Western attention that's gotten relative to what's been happening, to the Kurds in Syria, in Iraq. Those are things that I definitely want to get to. But what the very first question that I have is, when did you get back from Ukraine?
Oh God, I think it was like late June, somewhere around there.
Oh, okay.
So a couple months back.
Yeah. So you what have you been doing since you got back from Ukraine?
Well, oh God, I've never said this on my YouTube before, but I got deported from Singapore. So I was trying.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, I got the.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry. What do you mean you got deported from Singapore?
Man, so I had my passport, and I still have it at home. And it had a tiny little rip. And Singapore is super. It's really really strict. They ended up deporting me, and I was just trying to get. That wasn't even my final destination. It was a layover, but they didn't like that, so they deported me after a 16-hour flight back to San Francisco, free flight. But they deported me, and I did not let that get me down. I ended up just flying straight to Jakarta. So I had like a 2.5 month vacation. I just got back 5 days ago. So
And it was
jet lag-
just for a discrepancy on your passport.
Yeah, dude, it was just that. And it wasn't just me. They kicked out a businessman.
That I wasn't tracking that one.
It was fucked, man. There was God, his passport. It was like the top of it. He had a scratch on the cover of the passport. Out, deported. It's nuts, man. So yeah.
So
That's what I've been
that
up to. I got back.
so since you've been back, you're American, right? Since you've been back in the United States, where is CivDiv's Corey's focus right now?
Yeah, so right now it's been a little bit on YouTube, a little bit on Ukraine, because I'm going back to Ukraine here pretty soon. I'm not going to say the exact date just yet, but right now, most of this stuff, I'm using a lot of the YouTube money to go and fund a lot of my friends who are injured. They need new gear, they need new stuff, and they need to be able to get back home for like medical insurance and all that stuff. So yeah, no, right now I'm funding them. I'm figuring out what I'm buying. I just bought like 2 sets of body armor for them.
Nice.
I don't know how the airline. Yeah, I don't know how. If anybody knows in the comments, if they could tell me, am I going to get arrested? Are they not going to like that I have like 3 sets of body armor in my luggage?
You will end up with ITAR problems, but this is where I can help you out. I can connect you with somebody. You know, I'll help you out. Okay. Help put you in contact with someone from an armor company that I trust and work with every day. So they can help you work through the ITAR problems there. Anything we can help with. So let's go back a little bit to Ukraine though, because that's the topic that's on everybody's mind right now. It's been on everybody's mind since February 24th, 2022. When did you arrive in Ukraine?
I arrived. Oh God. Well, first it was Poland. It was like, I got to Poland like maybe 10 days after the war started, like March 6th or 7th. And then it took me like 2 days to get to Ukraine. So about 2 weeks into the war, I was in Ukraine, Lviv.
So it just 2 weeks after the second part of the invasion. I'm of the belief that the invasion has technically been ongoing since 2014, but
yep.
2 weeks, that would have put you mid-March. What was the process like for you to get into Ukraine? At the time, understanding that there's going to be a major differentiation now to what that process was like then. Was it simple? Was it difficult? Did you run into challenges?
It was pretty good. We ended up taking a bus, and I didn't have any problems. You just get off the bus, you go through the immigration. So they still did some actual immigration background checks and everything before going in. I didn't have any problem, and I was just waiting for my buddies to cross through the line, and we just after that it was only about an hour stop. Yeah.
So you went with people you knew already?
Yeah, no, it was people that I knew from acquaintances, and then we all knew each other already pretty much from group chats and all that. Yeah.
Okay, so group chats of people that were posturing to go to Ukraine.
Yeah, that, and also from previous experiences in Syria and Iraq, and even the Marine Corps too. Yeah.
Oh, really? Yeah. So you had former members of your unit with you in Ukraine.
Yeah, all 3 of them, like the Marine Corps, YPG, and YBS. I knew people in each of those groups that were in Ukraine.
That's
fucking nuts, man.
That's actually had to have been of pretty big benefit. I'm sure there was a language barrier, so having the chance to do that with folks that you have some level of built camaraderie with must have lifted at least a little bit of the stress off your shoulders there.
Yeah, dude. No, it was a big deal. Yeah. It got me through a lot of stuff because I'm not good at any of that stuff. Traveling, I was just
you live in a van. You're a van life. What do you mean you're not good at traveling?
I also get deported from Singapore.
That's all right. Yeah.
Yeah, dude.
If you guys could have peered into the 2 of us trying to figure out how to set up today's live stream, it would have been Akin to two village idiots trying to set up the live stream. Let's just put it that way. It was kind of comical, and maybe I don't remember which parts of our discussion I recorded. Something told me to hit the record button while we were setting it up. Oh, the whole part about you being 5'4", I did record that because they think that I'm short. So now the doppelganger.
That'll be the laughing stock. Yeah.
The doppelganger out there Anyway, so where generally speaking I'm not going to ask questions about where you are headed, but given that you're back now, I'm not sure what your comfort level is. But where were the areas in Ukraine that you spent time?
Pretty much all over. Actually, operational, it was Mykolaiv for like a week, and then the last 2 months I was there was Kharkiv. Yeah.
Okay. So
in the area that was before the counteroffensive, so it was pretty close to Kharkiv city. Yeah, Kharkiv city. Yeah.
If thinking back, when you say operational, help folks understand what that means, right? Just being in Ukraine enough is pretty. It's in a relative sense, it's close, but help them understand what operational means as a differentiation from your other time.
Yeah. No, I mean I did some work in Lviv, I did some work in Mykolaiv. And yeah, I mean, everybody's got different jobs. For me, it was military. I was trying to do frontline work. Okay. So operational for me was on the front line. I've been every region of Ukraine except for Dnipro. I never went southeast, but operational for me was actually being on the front lines, doing stuff.
Okay. Well, if you had to describe your general role. And would it be accurate in saying that you were a part of the International Legion?
It would not. There's a lot of people who think that. No, okay. Mine was actually, I was trying to dodge all the contracts,
Okay.
I didn't want to have to be locked in.
Well, then I f***ed up because I put it in the title for the, see? This is why I asked the question.
It's no problem. No, everybody thinks I was International Legion. I wasn't technical. I was part of the SSO for most of my time there.
What's the SSO?
Yeah, it's sort of the special forces, operational command of Ukraine, and yeah, that was most of my time there. And yeah, I didn't want to sign a contract with the International Legion, knowing that I'd be leaving in 4 or 5 months.
What did the contracts?
I knew that I was going to be doing other travels. Yeah.
What did the contracts look like for the International Legion?
Yeah, no, I mean, right at the start, and still even to today, it's pretty similar. It's usually a year-long contract. You can do longer if you want for better pay, I think. I'm not sure. But you have to, you can cancel it at any time. You can leave at any time. But it's kind of, I didn't want to do that. It looks kind of bad just to do a contract and knowing that you're going to be leaving early.
So it's a contract for a year that you can not fulfill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I mean, if you had to fulfill it, can you imagine all the backlash from all the countries? Like, can you imagine foreign fighters trying to be like, oh, I want to leave, and Ukraine has me hostage. Look at them. Like, that would create a lot of backlash.
Yeah. So, but I mean, on the flip side of that, in Ukraine's defense, they signed the contract, right?
True.
I actually wasn't under the impression that there was a defined time period on the contracts, which is preferable in my mind, right? I was always under the impression that, you could volunteer for a pay. My understanding is the pay isn't very good, but you could volunteer and choose to come and go essentially as you please at a fundamental level. Would that be accurate?
At a fundamental level, that is accurate. Yeah, but again, it's the contracts are mostly, in my view, I think they're mostly there just to make sure that if you do leave early, they know not to take you next time. Like they don't want people just going there, signing contracts, getting out, and it's more for the connections. I mean, as soon as you get to Ukraine, you're going to meet everybody. You're going to know pretty much everybody from every walk of life who's a foreign fighter. It's such a small community. So if you break that networking because you ended up, not completing your contract or not doing something, people are going to take you into their units. You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's one of those.
Yeah, like almost a respect thing. You didn't hold up your end of the bargain. Integrity almost. Okay. From when you say it's a small community, what does that mean? Like I'm assuming you probably can't give specific details, or if you can, it'd be amazing. But in your mind, if you had to put a pin on how many Foreign Legion fighters there are, what would that be?
Oh, honestly, I don't think it's as well. Are you including like Polish as well, which have a very very large number in Ukraine?
Sure.
Are you counting like everybody? Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah. Sure.
Ugh, I don't know. I would say no more than 10,000 in my opinion. I was never part of these battalions, but I don't think it's the numbers that, especially Russian propaganda, tries to portray. It's not that many people. At least Americans, I cannot imagine more than 500 went there.
Interesting.
Personally.
And I can
Yeah,
understand now that the question specifically related to the International Legion might be misplaced, given that technically you were not a part of the International Legion. And I'm
yeah,
still interested in how exactly that worked, right? As a foreign fighter, not being aligned against the area of their, militia, their defense, their,
yeah.
whatever you'd like to call it, not being aligned against where they would typically slot an American citizen. That is still interesting to me. Is there anything, you mentioned the SSO. What does SSO stand for, first of all? Do you know?
It's I used to know. It's like the Special Forces of Ukraine.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure exactly. Yeah.
That's less important for me than it is to really understand, would the SSO be considered, a part of Ukraine's military? Right. Is that an arm of the military? And as a foreign fighter, you were aligned with that arm.
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
No, it's directly with the Ukrainian military. And there's a lot of foreign fighters out there that sort of dodge the whole International Legion thing, and they end up working for SSO units or whatever other units that they can get to. There's not one way into the foreign fighter, like going to the front line. There's many different routes you can take. In my experience, yeah, I think they're actually starting to sort of like clean that up a little bit because they want to get the internationals more together, in the International Legion. But I do know that there are respected foreign fighters who have worked since the early days, at least the early days, 9 months ago, from this most recent invasion, that are still working with these Ukrainian units and stuff like that. I mean, one of them is Yuri. I'm sure a lot of people know that his combat footage.
Yep,
Yeah,
we know Yuri. He's actually
that,
a member of he's in the comments on Funker 530 all the time. Not unlike yourself.
oh,
So,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. No, Yuri. I don't know exactly where he's at, but I know that he was supporting Ukraine for many, many years. And I'm not sure. I think he speaks Ukrainian as well. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of unit he's in, but yeah, I would imagine probably not International Legion. I'm not sure.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's actually something that's there are a whole litany of questions that could theoretically follow after that, because that starts to beg or bring up issues with whether or not you're afforded protections as official military, etc. From a protections perspective, understanding Russian propaganda being what it is, something that we see quite a bit is, mercenary fighters aren't afforded the same protections as, a regular army. Was that something that you guys were ever briefed on or talked to about, anything along those lines?
No. I mean, it's not as I don't want to portray it as like we're just sort of finding our way into the military. We don't
Mm-hmm.
have contracts. At the end of our time there, we actually did get contracts, but at that point, my unit had dissolved. We decided to go elsewhere and like sort of get into some different units. But no, they were 100% of the time letting us go to military hospitals.
Okay.
They were affording us different weapons, affording us even the opportunity for being paid as well, even though we hadn't signed the contract at that point. They were, yeah, it was never briefed on us about mercenaries. We're not mercenaries. We are definitely working for the Ukrainian military, and they know that too. It's not like we're hiding or anything, if that makes any sense.
It does, at least to a certain extent. There are also, correct me if I'm wrong, right? There are also a litany of folks that are there in an entirely volunteer status that get labeled as mercenaries simply because they are foreigners in Ukraine. Would that be accurate in me saying that?
that people view it that way, or that
Yeah,
Russians
so
want known?
a great
Or-
example is there is a
Yeah.
female American medic that it was announced, Russian propaganda announced that she was dead. It turns out she was most definitely not. The
Wow.
narrative specifically that Russia used was that she was an American mercenary being paid to be there and was killed. In her rebuttal to that, she essentially said, "I am not a mercenary. I'm here in entirely a volunteer status performing medical aid." So
Yeah.
that was, I guess that's really less of a question and more of an example that the situation, as you're describing it, is a little bit more fluid and dynamic than people might think. It's not as clean and clear cut as are they, paid or not, or are they volunteer or not, are they International Legion just because they're foreign or not. It sounds like Ukraine is really just trying to leverage skills and capabilities in its different arms of the military where it possibly can.
Yeah, you got it, man. No, that's exactly it. And they do, man. They're pretty freaking strict about making sure that we are following their directions. We're under the military, and even to the point that it got us like operationally, we had to go and take pauses for paperwork, making sure that we have everything in line. So they take it very very seriously, at least in my experience. If that makes any sense, because I know it's complicated stuff. I'm trying my best to describe it, but
No,
it's very much,
the
yeah,
simplification helps, the
yeah.
simpletons like me to understand the process, understand what you went through. Speaking of what you went through, as a foreign fighter, there have been um, there have been reports in the past that foreign fighters, to a certain extent, were treated as lesser than non-foreign fighters. Did you experience anything like that?
No, at the end of the day, it sort of came down to, do they trust us? We don't speak the language, and a lot of times they would sort of not really give us all the intel that we wanted. And in their defense, I mean, I wouldn't trust some random people who come are in this unit, and even though they have contracts and everything, I wouldn't trust them immediately. So yeah, there's definitely they watch out for that. It ran into we ran into big problems when it came to intel, though. We did trying to get our hands on intel to go and be operational, even though it's we're literally part of the SSO. We have this unit.
One of
It's
your
Yeah, it was
videos
tough
is a
at
great
time.
peer into that intel problem, actually. There's a 30-minute long video of a recon mission where essentially you guys are sitting around with your thumbs
Yeah, that
up
one.
your ass. I'm sorry, I didn't beat
Yeah,
myself on saying that, but that's quite literally
no,
what I took away from that video. A lot of confusion, a lot of questions. What are we doing here? Are we advancing? Are we retreating? What's happening? Walk us through
yeah,
that. Walk us through that mission, if you don't mind. And what I'm going to do in the meantime is I might pull up some footage for people to watch a small section of that.
yeah, totally. All right, well, I'll start describing it. Yeah, it was exactly that. We did not get the intel that we thought we were getting. They sort of dodged around with giving us the intel. They said, "Oh yeah, there's they put out a map." The way my squad leader described it, they would put out a map and be like, "All right, in this grid, which is a kilometer by kilometer, they just point with their finger and be like, yeah, there's mines there. There's a unit operating here." But with every pointing of a finger, that's covered 500 meters by 500 meters. So that was yeah, they'd given us some intel that wasn't correct completely. They tried their best, and the thing with front lines, I guess, if I can talk about it, the front lines, they're not, some of them are very close. Some of them are 300 meters, 100 meters away from each other, a trench line to trench line. But other times, most of the time, especially since this new offensive came 9 months ago, when Russia had invaded, there's big, vast gray zones in no man's land of kilometers where Russians and Ukrainians operate in. So that was, I don't blame the commanders of the Ukrainians. It's not easy to get the intel that you'd want when there's a bunch of different units operating in this gray area. And that was mostly the purpose of this video that he's bringing up right now, which is we were just trying to find out what is going on in this gray area. And yeah, and here's the footage right now. Do you have that up? Do you have the footage on the
Yeah, sure
screen?
do, buddy. I'm just going to
Yeah.
full screen here for everybody, and you can kind of narrate for us. I'll turn up some volume on it too for folks to hear.
All right, cool. Yeah, I can't see the footage on my end, but I think I remember what we were doing.
Yeah, I tried giving it to
um,
you, but I ran into an issue with the capture card. Something I'll have to just refine over time.
yeah, no problem, man. Yeah, no, I described the sort of the beginning of the mission, and yeah, we're going into it. We're blind. We thought we weren't blind, but right from the get go, we they told us that there's a route to the village that was it's concealed. Everything's good. We spent about an hour trying to find that route. Did not exist. And then we ended up just taking the only route we could with any sort of concealment, which is just this very obvious road leading straight to the village. The only road in the middle of in the middle of two fields. So it was a difficult time. We ended up getting there. There's a bunch of civilians. Like, what the hell? And then we had after we visited that village, which will be like probably like 15 minutes into the video, we'll see us go into the second village, and that's when we start seeing suspicious stuff. We see civilians run around. They sort of hide. We see two guys in black uniforms, 600 meters out, and they had ran to cover, and then they ran behind another piece of cover, and then they sort of disappeared back into that village. And then at that point, we knew that the intel wasn't great, but that's what happens when you're operating in a gray zone. It's like anything goes. So much can happen, and that's why you need recon in that area. You know, drones. A lot of people. Sorry, am I just talking? Like
No, it's all good.
I'm
I'm listening intently to you, just watching the chat as we talk. Pete, there's a whole litany of people that think we're not live. What was his name? Steven? Jim? Oh, Spiker. We're absolutely live right now. Hi, pleasure.
We are live.
Yes, we are. No, I'm just listening to you. It's great to have the insight, right? Because and you do a great job on your channel of providing text overlay for additional context. You know, context being so important with footage that's coming out of Ukraine. Just to jump.
You know,
go ahead.
Yeah, what's up?
No. Go. Actually, you were about to mention something about drones. That's one of my questions that I have is what's that like? First of all.
Yeah. No, it sucks, man. It's actually my I just posted a footage or I posted a video a couple hours ago where I mean, you mentioned the text, how I put text on the bottom, and I try my best to describe things, but nothing describes better than just voice. You know, live streams like this, whatever it is. And so I actually found myself, describing the drones and how on my last mission I was walking down this road. You can see in the video. I didn't start my GoPro yet. We were 5 minutes into it. And we're walking down this road on Point Man, and we hear the whoosh of artillery coming in close. We're like, oh shit. So I just lay down in the middle of this concrete road, cover my neck, boom. It hits like 30 meters in front of us on this trench. I'm like, oh shit. We all run back, and a drone was watching us since we stepped off 5 minutes before. It was those things are freaky, man. Like, and it's not always drones dropping bombs. Like we see those popular videos. A lot of times it's calling in artillery or like telling some
forward
group
observer
that,
type work. Essentially acting as that forward observer. We actually talked about that, you know, from a general novelty perspective, how that actually there's an entire military occupational specialty in the Army for forward observation. A drone is now operating almost in its entirety. You still have the human element because you have a drone operator, and you essentially are able to extend forward observation to the distance of the drone, whether you're using that with a small actuator or something to drop a bomb, or you're using that to gather coordinates, to send in artillery or air. I want to go back to something though, if you don't mind. I want to go back to kind of. I want to talk a little bit about your family's reaction. Now, Ukraine. What was your family's reaction to you going to Ukraine? And where we're eventually gonna go is we're gonna circle back to this not being your first rodeo, if you will. But how did your family take that?
Well, going back to my previous experiences, right? Went to YBS.
Mm-hmm.
I was there in Iraq for 13 months, and I was literally in the city where I was going to be flying out back home. All right. So my family was fully expecting me to go back home. And that's when the war started. And that's when I decided to go to Ukraine. So they, that came as a surprise. It's like you're waiting for Christmas and then you find out, hey, nobody's coming, or hey, you didn't get any prep. I don't know. It was tough for them, but it was, they understood me. I keep doing stuff like this This is not my first time, and I didn't surprise them too much, if that makes any sense.
It just wasn't. It wasn't a shock, if you will. You'd already been
Yeah.
13 months elsewhere. Take us back to that.
Yeah.
What was when you initially decided, I'm gonna go overseas and fight, right? A, when was that in life for you? And B, what was the catalyst that made you decide to do that?
Yeah. No, I actually talked about this on Willie's podcast, or his podcast, and also we had two of them. But the reason, so the year was 2018. I got out of the Marine Corps in 2017, and the catalyst was I had spent a year after the Marine Corps working at Apple retail,
Mm-hmm.
which didn't really fit me. I mean, I don't think anybody can imagine me working at retail right now.
I kind of can.
And,
You look like a guy wearing khakis. Just face value. Look like a guy where we both do. We look the same. Just a guy wearing khakis in a polo shirt that I could walk up to and say my iPhone's not working. That you'd actually fit that bill just fine. I just want you to know that.
Yeah, I know. I smile a lot. I smile a lot.
Do you like IPAs? Do you like IPA beer? And
Actually, I went sober a couple months back.
congratulations.
I'm done. No IPAs. Thank you.
No IPAs. But did you like them before?
I did not like them. No.
You did not. Okay, I have this theory about IPAs. Is they're basically pumpkin spice lattes for basic white dudes. It's the rough. It's the rough equivalent. Anyway, so
I thought it was White Claw.
I like White Claw. Come on, man.
Yes, man.
So take me back to Syria. If you had to explain the situation in Syria to a simpleton like me at a fifth grader level, what, or even more specifically, the situation, especially with Turkey's most recent announcements on ramping up operations against the Kurds, how would you explain that entire situation? Which is it's going to have to be an oversimplification, but we only have so much time. How would you explain that in very simple ways?
Yeah, so if you're like my mom's friend who's asking, "Oh, wow, you went to Syria? How was that?"
Mm-hmm.
That sort of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, so
I am your mom's girlfriend.
Friend. Yeah, exactly. Church friend, right? So I pretty much say that, I'm working with the Kurds. There are Kurds in Iraq, Syria, Iran, and Turkey. Mm-hmm. And 100 years ago, when they were dividing up, I don't know if it was the U.S., but all of Europe, they were dividing up all the countries. They did not include Kurdistan. So you see Iraq and Syria borders are just straight lines. You can see Saudi Arabia, everything's straight lines, because 100 years ago, everybody made those countries. But they didn't involve Kurdistan and like 75 million Kurds that exist. So the group I was with was out there. It was in Syria, in an area called Rojava. They were the only ones who were fighting against ISIS at that time, pretty much. And they were able to restore that land with the help of the coalition. And ever since then, they've held that piece of land in Syria called Rojava, but they have a lot of problems because Turkey doesn't want them to have their own country, because they have there's some separatist groups that want to form Kurdistan in that Turkish part that was supposed to be Kurdistan 100 years ago. So I was just working with them, and they resist against ISIS, they resist against the Turkish military, pretty much anybody who invades.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And that situation you described is one that a lot of folks are probably familiar with. I am most familiar with it from a tribal aspect in Afghanistan. When the Afghanistan lines were drawn, the border lines, they cut tribes in half. There are folks that believe, rightfully so, that the half of their family lives in Pakistan now and are supposed to be Pakistani. But those borders were drawn by the West.
Wow. Was that 100 years ago as well? I did not know that they drew the borders just like that.
I mean, that's ultimately how these tribal nations turned into. That's how we end up splitting up, resources, right?
Yeah.
It's got a whole lot to do with resources. I think that conversation might be for a deeper dive one day. I want to circle back to Ukraine, and I want to talk a little bit about Patriot missile batteries, right? Something that's been prevalent. Correct me at any point. Tell me I'm an idiot. Something that's been too prevalent is the targeting of population centers. Is that something that you witnessed personally at all?
Yes, 100%. Oh my God, I was in Odessa. when they were sending in cruise missiles. Yeah,
in
you know,
Odessa.
and yeah, yeah, crazy
Okay.
stuff, man.
So one of the most recent reports that's come out has been that the United States, at least in probably for quite a bit longer, but at least since the errant missile that went into Poland, has been considering and is now closing in on a deal to provide Ukraine with Patriot missile batteries. These are a very advanced, very capable missile battery. For those in the chat that might not be tracking, what exactly they're able to do. It definitely ramps air defense capability to the nines. I personally have spoken almost ad nauseum about the necessity to provide these defensive posture weapons to protect population centers, to protect metropolitan areas. In your mind, what's the value of that as, a soldier on the ground? This very advanced defensive posture weapon system.
God, man. I mean, that's the whole reason that the Ukrainians are fighting for what they are. You know, it's they're fighting on the front lines to go and keep the danger away from all these places back there. You know, and you can see in videos also, videos that you post on Funker.
Yeah.
Like you can see the Ukrainians literally just taking stingers, trying to shoot down cruise missiles.
Yeah.
You see the guys in Kiev just a month ago trying to shoot them down, the Iranian Shahed drones.
Yeah.
With the small arms fire, successful as well in some cases. This is a big deal. Yeah. No, I think Patriot missiles need to be in there.
And there's some
yeah, what's up?
There's some really, really bad takes, and I wanna correct one of them for a moment. So we're about to go into rant mode for a second. Let me explain something. Let me explain something to everybody in the chat that might be thinking this. There was a comparison done, and I'm gonna I'll call out directly. I don't care. It's Kim.com that did it. I don't care. He did a comparison: $3 million for a Patriot missile system versus a $300 drone. If in some way you believe that Patriot missiles are being provided to combat a $300 drone system, I really don't know how to help you understand the situation in its entirety. What these Patriot missile batteries will ultimately do is provide a defense to the actual cruise missiles that are being used, KH-55s, 101s. What that ultimately opens is systems like the Avenger, which fires Stinger missiles, man-pads to be used against the drones. So if you're in the chat and you're thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, we're going to waste, these missiles on drones, that is absolutely not what they're going to be used for. And I submit the floor back to you, Corey.
I've got a friend who is a Patriot missile operator in the Army. They found me on Instagram. They were telling me about how they shot down a drone, or not a drone. They shot down a missile that was fired by Iran somewhere in the Middle East. These things are incredibly useful. You can see just how the destruction that Russia's bringing on all the infrastructure. I think it was like 70% of Ukraine was without power like a week ago, something like that.
Yep.
They're not targeting military with the giant cruise missiles, multi-million-dollar cruise missiles, and all these different missiles. There's not much of a defense that Ukraine has right now. They need something, and it's stopping everyday life for everybody in Ukraine. It's stopping like everything, standstill. There has to be some sort of solution, and Patriot missiles they've been a proven thing since I think the 80s or 90s, and it's just they need something, and I think it's a great way to do it.
Yeah, and another one that I'm hoping that we see end up to help combat some of the smaller stuff is the Phalanx system, Spicy R2D2. CRAM is what we called it.
CRAM, yeah.
CRAM is technically the umbrella term for it, but the system itself is known as the Phalanx. CRAM is counter rocket artillery and mortar. It's kind of an overarching term to describe any capability that can fall under that. What people know as the CRAM is technically the Phalanx system.
Is it like that dome thing? They're like dome.
Yeah, it's like R2D2 with a big old thing sticking out the front of it. Cool. I call it this spicy R2D2. That's what I like to. That's how I like to imagine it. Yeah. I want to ask a question that I happen to notice swing through the chat is from as a foreign fighter, what was your personal supply chain like? Of food, poop tickets, all of that stuff. How did you sustain yourself in Ukraine?
Yeah. So when it was at the very start, when I went to Mykolaiv, the way we sustained ourselves, it was given to us. We were working for the Ukrainian military at that point, and I remember distinctly we were in the barracks just across the bridge from Mykolaiv, and we were there, and they brought in just tons of these Snicker boxes. Snickers, right? There was like a box of like 24 pack, right? Big old box.
Like,
Like,
were they king
oh
size
yeah,
Snickers or just normal Snickers?
I
Like
don't
the
know,
whole
but
whole ass candy bar?
well, okay, let me go on
Oh,
because
okay.
they just brought the boxes. There was like hundreds of these, and I thought it was all Snickers. And then inside was canned food. It was MREs.
Oh,
So I
what a
opened them up,
okay.
hoping for yeah, dude.
What?
So I had
Well, I
I had
shouldn't say that's a
Chef
disappointment
Boyardee.
because it's a godsend to receive food of any kind, but eyeballing a
Yeah, but Chef
Snickers.
Boyardee. Yeah, dude. I know. I was hoping. I opened it up, just trying to just get one and Chef Boyardee and stuff. That's what the logistics
Okay.
were. It wasn't proper MREs. It was canned food. When I was in Kharkiv a couple months after the Mykolaiv thing, it was mostly food that was given from military drives, or it was drives like humanitarian drives, like setups for civilians and also military personnel, and we were able to get our hands
Mhm.
on food there, and that's what we would use to sustain ourselves.
Did you run
Yeah.
into any challenges from an ammunition perspective, from a combat power perspective as an individual?
As an individual, no. They gave us all sorts of ammunition. One thing, I guess for our unit specifically, we didn't have much rifle ammo. I don't know why. We didn't use it much. None of us really fired our rifle during our recons, so we didn't really need to replenish it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I only had I think 4 mags on me at that time, where I would have preferred probably like 9. But
Sure.
other than that, we had plenty of PKM ammo. We had like 12 laws, RPG 22s, 26s. We had N laws, 2 of them. We had a bunch of stuff, man. We had a bunch of stuff. I can't really complain about that.
So
Yeah,
speaking of small arms and equipment, one of the things that
yeah.
we've actually seen reports ad nauseum, and I personally don't combat at all, is what I would consider to be localized corruption. We've talked about corruption here on Funker before. In my opinion, corruption is a scale. Everywhere is corrupt. Just depends on how corrupt.
Yep,
The United
yep.
States is corrupt. Ukraine is corrupt. Russia is corrupt. China is corrupt. It just depends. It's a scale. And to be honest with you, this scale is different dependent upon who you speak to. It's a perception. Localized corruption is something, in my mind, that would be akin to donated supplies that go missing. The $100,000 was raised for. I'm just giving you an example in a silo, not necessarily saying this has happened. $100,000 was raised and $20,000 of it goes missing. Did you experience anything along those lines?
I did to an extent. It wasn't that bad. It wasn't something that I can, if I were to bring it to court, I wouldn't be able to prove it,
Sure.
that sort of thing. But yeah, no, I saw some sketchy stuff here and there. Like we would get a javelin, but where is the clue? We didn't have a clue. Where is that? Well, I don't know.
Explain the clue.
Yeah, the clue is, well, I never really fired the javelin and never operated it, but the clue is it's got the thermal imaging. It's the big machine that operates the
Mhm.
missile that'll go out.
It's ultimately the fire system to the javelin.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
essentially what controls it. So
That's a quick way to put it.
they would provide you with everything except for the stuff to fire it.
Yeah,
Interesting.
exactly.
Where do you
So
suspect that went?
I've got no clue. And it could have just been, just they misplaced it and they didn't really know. But there's some other cases where there was N laws where I was in the back of the van. They had taken an N law and they brought it into a different van, and that was our N law. Why are you taking it? And I never saw it again, and I don't know exactly where, but we had pulled over on the side of the road and we did it.
Is there a
But other than
possibility they
that,
were just reallocating that elsewhere for use?
possibly, but why would we do it in the middle of a residential area? Put the vans really close. I don't know. I don't know.
So
I, I
it was shady, is what you're saying.
it was shady. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
it was shady. I can't really, again, I can't really prove any of this stuff, but there's a lot of cases like that, even at the start of the war in Mykolaiv, where, God, yeah, there's stuff like that. But one thing I do want to say, I think you hit it spot on. Anywhere there's money, there's gonna be corruption. You
Mhm.
know, we see. I was reading the news years ago, and I just remembered it right now. There was a Marine Corps, I think, first sergeant or just somebody higher up in Paris Island. You know, where I did my recruit training in the Marine Corps, and he, a couple years back, he was caught. He was selling $1.5 million worth of razor blades off of the logistics that they have for that base. You know, and he ended up spending like a couple years in prison, I think. You know, this stuff happens. Anywhere there's money involved, and it doesn't matter which country. Watch Lord of War. You can just see how corrupt.
Please don't get us started on Lord of War and Victor Bout. I've got a whole take on that, and it's not for I don't think it's for this stream. This is anyway,
we'll get to it. Yeah.
But I will say that from what I can tell, a lot of those channels, I've said this before. I don't consider us to be a pro-Ukraine channel. I would consider us to be more of a channel of realism. And in my mind, there's ample evidence that Russia has committed atrocities, that Ukraine is imperfect. But if you look at a global scale here, what Russia is doing absolutely upsets a global balance. Speaking to localized corruption is something that should not be stopped. It should be talked about. It should be understood. And the resources, the knowledge, the intelligence provided to Ukraine to hopefully address it and work on it. It shouldn't be a topic that gets avoided and not discussed. A lot of folks will label a 1 or a 0. You either support Ukraine or you don't. You support Russia or you don't. And the world, in my mind, is not that simple. That's not necessarily for anybody for you to react to. It's just more of a statement of mine. It's something that I've kind of reinforced throughout our coverage and discussion of the war. Since February, we were live the night of February 24th.
Wow. Yep.
So what's next for you? You mentioned going to Ukraine. I'm not gonna ask, where you're headed and things along those lines, because you need to protect yourself as much as possible. But beyond that, what's next for you? I understand you're going back to Ukraine. Is it more van life? Say suddenly the situation stops in its entirety. What follows for Corey, for CivDiv?
Yeah. No, I think honestly it's going to be a continuation of this channel. Of my channel, CivDiv.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try my best to keep it alive, keep going. Even though the combat footage is running out, that's what people are mostly here for. I'm still going to continue. I'm still going to be here when people want information. So it's something I'm passionate about. Other than that, I don't make a plan more than 4 months in the future. If it's 4 months in the future, I don't know where the hell I'm going to be. So it'll probably be a continuation of.
I've got no 1, 5, or 10 year plan either. It's kind of seat of the pants, if you will.
Yeah. As the day goes by, I mean, you get different ideas, and I want to keep myself free. So I'm going to continue going to Indonesia, going to different places, and I'll definitely be back in Ukraine if the war doesn't end by the time that I'm done with my whatever I'm doing here in the future. When I come back, I'm going to go back to Ukraine. I'm going to continue this work. Yeah. And also, I want to mention one thing.
Sure.
When it comes to when it comes to the corruption and stuff, it's this isn't corruption, but again, with wherever money is involved, I had a lot of my friends, almost every single one of my friends that I was with out there in Ukraine, that still stayed there was injured. Okay, and they're going to make a full recovery. They're doing great, and they love that country, and they're going to stay there, and they're going to do what they do. But when they were injured, obviously you take off the Kevlar, you take off all the equipment off them, so you can check them. And a lot of them don't know where those that body armor went. They don't know. And again, it's not just like big corruption of 20 grand missing here, 40 grand. A lot of it is just small stuff. Like where's my rifle? Where's my plate carriers and stuff? And those are the people I'm supporting. I'm trying to get them their body armor back.
Yeah.
It's just small things here and there. People are gonna. Humanity is gonna take its toll on them. It makes any sense.
Yeah, and something I didn't say. Words matter, and if you don't say something, then suddenly that becomes something. Not saying something becomes its own narrative. I I have a hard time explaining to people localized corruption as it in wartime as it relates to being generally supportive of Ukraine's success, regardless of what happens to that equipment and gear. I would say that the situation in Ukraine as it stands relative to this quote unquote localized corruption would not be something that would stop me from wanting Ukraine to succeed.
Yep.
Largely because, like I said, if you look at this from a macro level, from a global scale, what Russia is doing is absolutely wrong. There's no real ifs, ands, or buts about that. I think that the majority of the free world would agree with me saying that. But like I said, it's still something that should be talked about because I feel as though, and we've actually kind of, to a certain extent, proved this with data. Ukraine has shown a marked decrease in corruption since it was very corrupt, in its Soviet Republic days, and just after the fall of the USSR. Very corrupt. It was the largest source of black market weapons in the world. In fact, Victor Bout probably sold half of it, but over time, the corruption perceptions, because again, corruption is a perception, and depending upon whose scale you use, it's going to be different. The corruption perceptions over time, whether it be public or private sector, have continued to fall. Corey, what I did is I opened up the Q&A section of the chat, and I'm going to be asking you some of the questions that are coming in here from the Funker community. You going to be good with that? Some of them might get a little bit spicy.
All right, let's go. Give it to me.
All right, the easy one. What rifle? What was your rifle?
AK-74.
AK-74. Okay, it's 5.45. Do you have any optics on it? Just bare-assed?
Yeah, no, we had suppressors come in from a donator, so we had suppressor on it. But
I have seen more suppressors in Ukraine than any other footage of any other war ever. I like that. That is. Did you end up putting a suppressor on your rifle?
Yeah. No, and it was very, very difficult to take it off for some reason. It was a cheap suppressor. It was, but
hey,
it was usable. Yeah.
Okay. And that question was from Ego Smocks. I have a question from Cameron. This is kind of a softball for you. Has CivDiv kept a lot of connections with the people he fought alongside?
Yes, 100%. Every single one of them. Every single one.
Anthony, we'll get to that question at the very end. Maybe.
What's happening? Okay.
No. That question transcends the Funker community to elsewhere, and it might not be the best place for it. So here's a question from Gaming Merchant. This is a topic that we've covered before. What are his thoughts on Belarus potentially joining Russia and opening up the Northern Front again?
Wow. Well, I'll be honest. I don't really know the politics behind it. I've heard a lot of rumors. All I'll say is that I remember. I'm not going to say his name, but there was a very prominent Ukrainian figure on YouTube who had said, yes, this is happening this week, and this was a couple months back. I don't know. I don't think anybody can predict it. And I guarantee you that if it were to open up, we would have intelligence, just like the U.S. gave Ukraine intelligence that, yes, Russia is going to be doing an invasion. We're going to get the intelligence we need to defend the northern border if it does happen. Probably weeks in advance, maybe months, in my opinion.
Yeah, in Belarus, from a military capability perspective, we did a deep dive and covered, it's not that much of a capability, to be wholly honest with you. There are quite a few challenges internally with Belarus that would create problems, generating combat power and being able to sustain any kind of operation. Russia's general opinion, you're welcome to stop me at any point, general failures maintaining and managing multiple fronts kind of leads me to believe that since the beginning of the war, Ukraine would be a little bit more prepared for an invasion from the north now than they were at the time.
Yeah, no, and I think also we have to. I would keep in mind as well. The Belarus, at least at this point, except for some volunteers that maybe have joined the Russians on their offensives, the Belarusian military has not seen combat at this point. Just make that clear. The Ukrainians are very, very. They've been through a lot of shit, even the territorial defense, and it's going to be fresh recruits, fresh soldiers who have never seen combat going up against Ukraine, which is pretty much every able-bodied man has seen some form of combat and has resisted against, falling into absolute paranoia and hysteria when they're on the front line. So I don't think that I don't think an invasion, even if they were to do it full force, I don't think it would be very effective, at least in the beginning days. I think they would be taking a lot of losses, and it would be kind of bad,
Yeah,
my opinion.
again, a lot of the combat power early on, and you can follow along campaign maps here to see the progression where Russia was able to advance and where they weren't. Ukraine, in my mind, had aligned a lot of that posturing to the east in the Donbass. And what ultimately ended up happening is those other fronts, north, northeast, and south, were able to progress further because Ukraine had postured itself for an invasion from the east. The Donbass line, by and large, did not change, and still to this day hasn't changed all that much, the Donbass line specifically. Then you get into situations like in Severodonetsk and Lysychansk that Russia has taken, and, it's kind of that, northern Donbass area has ebbed and flowed a little bit. Do you happen to know, actually, I don't know whether I want to answer or ask that question of you or not. I do have a question about differentiation from fighting with the Kurds and fighting with Ukraine. In your mind, the first thing that comes to mind, what's the biggest difference?
Biggest thing, when I went to Lviv, the first thing that I ever did in Ukraine was a couple days of training the territorial defense. First thing, the Kurds are not willing to learn anything NATO. They don't care. They are very, very nationalistic to the point of not learning something new. In my experiences, Ukraine is not like that. As soon as somebody with a little bit more experience comes their way, they are all eyes and ears. They're the best class to teach. So that's the first thing I'd say. Yeah, cool.
So they absorbed quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh
Okay.
yeah, man.
Sponges.
No,
yeah.
Way different than the Kurds, to be honest.
So what about? I know you and I talked about this. What about local Ukrainians? Any run into any issues with local Ukrainians that stayed or continued to be loyal to the Russian cause? We do know that inside of Russia, whether it be because Russia is essentially putting a box around it and closing the doors, in Zelensky's words at least, closing the doors, closing the windows, and shouting at their internal family that they should be supportive of the special military operation. But what about in Ukraine? How much support, generally speaking, did you find for Russia's invasion, if any at all?
I didn't see any of that. Never. If I did, I would tell you. But again, like maybe they're scared to say it or be vocal about it. But in my experience, they were all incredibly supportive, incredibly how can they help? It's been amazing. Yeah,
and
I've never had any issues with any of them.
That question is from Lazy Genius 09. I just kind of adjusted the framing of it. There's a question from Max about your training for the SSO. Did you have to train, perform any additional training, additional qualification? How were you selected for that mission, basically?
Yeah, no, good question. It was actually no training at all, but it was all, again, like you want to make a good network. If you're going to be doing any volunteer work or anything in life, you want to make a good network and you want to make a good name for yourself. So those words spread around, and they'll be held to you. So when I came to join that SSO unit, there was no training involved, but they wanted to make sure I was good. I had a connection from my Marine Corps days where I was not a very good Marine, not at all, not in the slightest. In my same battalion was a guy who was in that unit, the SSO unit. He had seen me on YouTube. He had seen me from different friends that I talked to where I go to Syria. I go to Iraq. And now I'm in Ukraine. I've been on different missions here and there. and he saw that I have developed and I've gotten better, and I'm more motivated and I'm more, mature. So he had accepted me into that unit at that point because he knew that I knew my shit and I was,
Mhm.
somebody they can lean on.
So
You know what I mean?
you leaned on a personal connection for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, and nothing wrong with acknowledging that you weren't the best Marine. I probably wouldn't make a very good Marine either. We've got one Marine on our team, and he's an absolute asshole. And I love him
Okay,
very
well,
much, very very much. Josh is amazing. Oh, this is one actually that I had written down. So thank you very much, Ego Smox, for asking it. Did you ever use Starlink? And if did you know if you were using Starlink or not?
Yes, I did. I made the camouflage for it as well because it's just this giant white disc that's shooting up at the sky, kind of reflective.
Yeah.
So yeah, we use Starlink, man. It's very very effective.
Did you run into
The
any
one thing is,
problems with connectivity with it? Anything like that?
no, it was fabulous. It wasn't the best where we had the amount of guys that we did there trying to all use it at once, but other
Mhm.
than that, it was good. The one fear that we did have, if I can talk about that, it was drones. I mean, we were told that they can uh, spot them and get the connection, figure out where that Starlink thing is. They were saying the rumor was that if a drone had flown directly over, it wouldn't just be visual, contact with the Starlink that would tell them that somebody's here, but it could also be some sort of connective uh, feature of it. I don't know exactly what, but that was a fear. I don't know if Starlink's still being used out there, but it was effective when we were there. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. There's a once again a kind of a softball of a question for you, but I'm actually really interested to understand this. It's from once again Gaming Merchant. What motivates you? And I'll refine it and make it a little bit more targeted and pointed. What motivates you to return to Ukraine based on everything that you've described today?
Yeah, yeah. No, for me, it's my friends. Most of the reason that I'm going back there is to be able to support my friends who are injured, support different people that, uh, I'm not going to talk about all that stuff. I don't want to get too many names out there, but
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the main thing. There's a lot of friends that I wanted to go and help out with their ventures out there, and yeah, that's pretty much it. When it comes to just a wide reason why do I do this stuff in general,
Mhm.
I would say that it's changed along the way, but I do. I think everybody would know by now. I do enjoy journalism to an extent. I like being on the ground and seeing and telling people what's really going on. Uh, OPSEC being a concern, obviously, but I do. I've been watching Funker for like 10 years now. I was
Sure.
watching when I was in high school. You know what I mean? And to see that footage, it really, really developed me when I was going into the military and be able to see the actual true reality of what war is. I want to help people
I'm gonna ask
understand that a
you.
little bit more.
I'm gonna ask
Yeah,
you a difficult question.
go
That
for it.
that I did not prepare you for whatsoever.
A
And in fact,
curveball.
in fact, we're so far off of the original things we planned to discuss today. It's not as though this is going to be foreign. There's a pretty
Yeah,
big differentiation between carrying a camera and carrying a rifle, and there are a lot of folks that have gone to Ukraine. You spoke to being interested in journalism. What
yeah,
specifically led you to want to carry a rifle if your motivation is journalistic in nature? Like, what is
yeah,
why choose the rifle over the camera?
yeah, yeah. No, I don't think I'd be a very good uh, journalist when it comes to like politics and stuff like that. I wouldn't be that good. The camera was just an add-on. I'm a military guy at heart. I was in the
Okay.
Marine Corps. I enjoy being in the military community. I like fighting for what I believe in. I like doing that sort of thing. Maybe it's a Napoleon complex. We were talking about how I'm 5'4". I don't know.
Are
I
you
don't know, but
are you actually 5'4", or is this some kind of meme
I
I'm not
and a
familiar with?
half. No, no,
And a
and a half.
half.
Five
Oh,
foot
okay.
four and
That's
a half. Yeah.
yeah. We're good. That's it for tonight.
Depending on
Thanks,
the shoe
folks.
size.
Bye.
We got all, yeah, no.
I'm just excited
Depending on
that
the
there's
shoe.
somebody shorter than me. I'm just I don't know if it's a short guy thing, but to meet somebody shorter than you is nice. I'm a very average
Yeah, well,
guy, top to bottom. The size 10. I'm 180 pounds. I'm 5'10".
yeah, yeah.
I have a question from Brendan. How can folks support you? What do you need? What are you looking for? How can people outside of just heading over to CivDiv? There's a link for that in the stream description for the chat though, and we are live 100%. Everybody, hi, we're still live. But how can folks support you? What do you need?
I don't need anything, man. I wish I knew what to. I know that with the relevance that I have, especially with the Ukrainian war happening and people coming to the channel and stuff, I should have something set up where I can better support the people that I want to support, but I don't. And I feel weird starting a Patreon. I don't know if that would be useful to what I'm doing, so I'm straying away from that for now. I don't know, man. You can just keep talking about Ukraine to your family, keep people in the loop of what's going on. That's a big deal for everybody that's out there. Just knowing that people haven't forgotten. You know, that's the big thing. Just keeping that in your mind, keeping the Ukrainian people in your prayers or wishes or whatever the atheists say.
That is a valid concern, though, right? Just to kind of
Yeah.
expand on that, one of Ukraine's concerns is that the West loses, to a certain extent, interest in supporting. By and large, the mob is a goldfish. We are. You get us together, and it's the latest thing is a common thing to say. But the war in Ukraine is still very much so active. And yeah, I've spoken about it before. We see it from a metrics perspective on the website. We can see how many people are searching for and finding Ukraine war footage. How many people are ending up, on the site to be a little bit more informed on what's going on. So we have a visit from my dog. Sorry.
What kind of dog?
Hey, buddy. He's a golden retriever. Do you want some petting?
Hey.
All right, come here. Hi.
All
Hi, come
oh,
on,
sorry,
buddy.
my dog here.
Come
God
on.
damn it.
Come here. Hi. This is Zeus. I don't know if you can see him or not, but they can.
I can see a little bit of fur in the corner. Hello, Zeus.
Good boy. All right, I need you to go lay down. Go lay down. I'm hanging out with my friends. All right, a couple more questions here.
Hit me with the curveballs, man.
With the
Fuck me up.
curveball, okay, we've got a good one
Yeah,
coming up from Racial Consciousness. This is one.
Oh,
He says I could be completely wrong about this, but I feel like CivDiv has vaguely mentioned that he was part of a unit that did raids on Russian collaborators. Is this accurate, or did I misunderstand? This goes back to your mission and role.
Yeah. I did not take part in raids. Nope. Was I part of a group where for a short period of time that was working for that sort of job? Yes. I can't really go into specifics, but I didn't do anything like that personally. If that makes any sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Relative, so from an operational tempo perspective, this is a question from one of the village idiots. His name's Ronnie. A question of mine, from an operational tempo perspective, what was higher? Your time with the Kurds, your time in Ukraine?
What do you mean by that? That was a lot of big words.
I hear you. That's just a word that op tempo is a word that I see a lot of people using, and it makes me feel smart to say it. So,
op tempo.
op tempo. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's come back to me.
The higher op tempo with the Kurds, higher op tempo with Ukraine.
I gotcha. Ukraine. All right. So
Really?
when it comes to the Kurds, yeah. So when it comes to the Kurds, I mean, in 2018 when I joined the YPG, ISIS was defeated like 3 months into my time there. Was never able to take part in any operations. When it comes to YBS, it was all defensive. So like, and when I say defensive, it was mostly just surviving. Surviving on your hilltop, making sure that you don't get drone struck. That was the main thing. So you could have considered that, maybe like a sort of frontline activity where you're defending your position and you're keeping it and making sure that it stays in friendly hands. Okay, maybe that was an operation every single day. Then I don't know, but Ukraine was definitely, that was recons, that was actual missions, that was for sure a better op tempo. Yes.
All right, I got another curveball for you, and this one comes from man, I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on pronouncing this. Zeitgeist. Anyway, here's the question: Are you a war junkie?
Good question. I think a lot of people would think that. Maybe I am. Maybe. But I'll tell you what my motivations are, and you're just gonna have to take my word. My motivations are, literally just show people what is going on with my channel, showing people the true reality of what's going on in the different wars that I go to. You can see my YBS documentary where I try and play that out. That was the first big video that I made in like a year and a half, was just a big documentary on that. And the main job that I like to do is military, and the reasons are a lot. And all of them, there's different percentages of what my reasons are, right? But I would say the majority of it is I enjoy every aspect of being in the military. I like being with people. I like waking up early. I like being with
You like waking up early?
Yeah, I like structure. I like structure. It's
okay.
easy. I miss it a lot, especially living in the van. I've got no structure and I've got nothing to do.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
just having another structure, being with my friends, doing something where people care about me, and that's a big deal. And I think that's for most people that are considered war junkies. I think it's mostly, it's people that just want meaning in their life, and this is a great way to do it.
Sure.
In my opinion.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm still monitoring the Q&A section of the chat, guys. So if you end up with a question, we've got about 10 minutes left here. Here's one. Horrors, right? Everybody, one person's horror being different than another's. In your mind, what is the most horrific thing that you saw between your time in Ukraine and your time in other wars?
The most horrific thing I would say was in Syria, which is kind of weird. I never went on any operations, but it was a big mind fuck, man. This guy, the Marine Corps, never got deployed, and then I go to Syria. I'm with the Kurds. The biggest thing was there was one night, and I briefly talked about this on my channel before. There's one night I was on guard duty. This guy comes by, somebody, a friend at that time. He comes by and he wants to go on a walk, and he ended up going on that walk, and he killed himself. And I did not know. I was given permission. I talked on the radio. Hey, can this guy go on a walk? Yes. So, he went on that walk, and that happened. And that was my first time seeing a dead body. It's just some sad stuff. That was the most horrific thing. It was just like, I'm doing my mission. I thought I was doing it good. It's my first deployment, and then boom, 2 weeks into it, that happened. That was the worst time. That was the worst time.
Yeah, that doesn't. I've had friends that have taken their own life from my time in the military. I'm still technically in the military. I'm a reservist now, and it's even when it's just an acquaintance, somebody that you had just been speaking to, whether it be a couple weeks or a few moments prior, it's jarring, if you will. That I think that's the most tactful way that I can put that. I've got one more serious question for you, and then we're gonna have a little bit of fun. All right. There is a life question out there that I recently found. We'll get there eventually. This one's a little bit of a curveball too, and it's a complex question. How would you say you feel about the Russians? Have you come to pity them, respect them, hate them, etc.?
Yeah.
And I'll refine it to the Russians that are in Ukraine right now.
Yeah.
In uniform.
Well, I think it's
whether they be separatist, Russian military, Wagner, etc.
My time when I was there, it was before the whole mobilization thing.
Okay.
All right. So my view of them, like, look, they get their own propaganda. They get their own views, and I can tell you for sure that many of them believe completely in what they're doing. It is not right, but they get different news sources and everything. I value them as a human. I do not, and that's the weird thing about war. It's weird to talk about. Like, I'm willing to kill this guy, but I'm sure we'd be completely normal if we were just having a coffee together. I have a Russian friend. He's awesome. Mm-hmm. His views are a little bit different, but you know what? Like, he's a freaking dude. I don't hate the Russian people. There's a lot of people who believe that, there's no good Russians, or I don't believe that at all. There's good people on every side, and everybody's got their different views, and I just think that they're completely wrong, and I'm going to take up arms against it. If that makes any sense.
It makes a whole lot of sense, right? It does. I'm not gonna take that any further. Because again, that one, is a complex question to answer.
Yeah.
It shows the humanity of things, right? Is understanding that the person at the fore end of your barrel is another human, and your function and job is as a soldier is to remove that human's existence before that human removes your existence. And under different circumstances, you might be friends with them, right? But
Yeah, and
it's
same goes for ISIS. ISIS, terrible ideology, terrible people, right? But give me this. When I was in Yabasha, YBS in the tunnels, a lot of the tunnel workers, the people who would dig the tunnels for us, were former Daesh. They were former ISIS, former these groups, but they were cheap labor, and we would have them dig it. And oftentimes we would break bread with them. We'd have chai with them. We'd smoke shisha. We do everything with them, and they're normal dudes, And they grow up without internet. They grow up in this, it's difficult to comprehend it unless you go in a theater like that. But it's difficult to comprehend.
It's really
how people can
not,
get
though.
that.
It's really not difficult to understand that when you change your frame of mind to your beliefs and what you believe in the deepest parts of your soul is ultimately built by the context from which you were raised, right? If the context that you were raised taught you that the color orange represents evil, then you will live your life believing that the color orange was evil. Throughout time, there are situations where former Daesh, former Al-Qaeda operatives, former Taliban begin to understand that the ideology that they grew up with, that they were raised in, isn't necessarily how they'd like to continue their life, and they do decide to leave it behind, right? So that is, you can change your mind over time. A lot of people take, you can even roll this all the way up into politics. A politician 20 years ago says something, and 20 years later reverses course, and people will still hold them accountable for what they said 20 years ago, when in fact, people change, right? And the evil 1 or 0 binary problem that we oftentimes align with an ISIS or with the Russian military in Ukraine is oftentimes not deserving of that 1 or 0, because there's different context. Now, ultimately, those individuals that are in a leadership role that are enabling that ideology, that evil ideology, that is, leading to the horrible acts of terrorism that ISIS, is responsible for, the targeting of population centers, etc. That's their fault, right? But leading all of these other human beings to do all of these things is ultimately conditioning over time of their brains to believe that is what's right. It's a very centrist argument, and it's a very careful one that you have to have, because simply saying ISIS ain't all that bad is quite honestly one of the most horrible sounding things you could imagine. But what you're speaking to is the individual. What you're speaking to is the individual. Those people that have realized that what they're doing is not right. They have been conditioned to believe that was the appropriate path. And it's world's complex. I don't want to talk too much on that. Okay.
No, I think you put it well, man.
I got a question for you. So I recently learned not too long ago. This might blow your mind, or you might make fun of me. I don't know. But I learned not too long ago that there are a whole host of people that stand when they wipe.
No.
And I didn't know that was a thing. And as it turns out, I have done very scientific tests here. By scientific tests, I mean YouTube polls. As it turns out, almost 40% of people I have polled on this stand up. And I can't wrap my head.
No.
And I can't. Okay, thank you. And that's going to be it for tonight, folks.
They are messing with
Corey, dude, we've had a long conversation tonight. All I can say, buddy, is thanks for coming on with me to answer some complex questions, to try to dissect a complex situation, share with us a little bit of your story, and give us the opportunity to introduce your work to some of our community. I do hope that leading up to your time headed back to Ukraine, we'll be able to bring you on to maybe dissect some of the other footage based on your experience in Ukraine, if that's something that you're interested in. But I just wanted to say thanks and give you the opportunity to kind of close things out, and offer up any words of advice to those that might be considering joining the International Legion or traveling to Ukraine themselves. I will leave that up to you to say whatever you like, but these next few minutes here are yours.
All right, man. No, I really appreciate it. I had an idea as well. When I go back to Ukraine, I'm going to be visiting a lot of the places that I have operated in, since literally every single place that I operated in is now well behind the front lines. It was all liberated by the Ukrainians. So I'm looking forward to going there. I'm going to be bringing, I've got big plans on stuff that I'm going to be bringing to Ukraine to go and support the civilian population and everything. So I hope to get some footage from that area, the same places you guys have seen the GoPro videos, and see it in Ukrainian hands and see how the civilian population is dealing with it. The whole, like, my life is weird. I don't recommend this to anybody. I would never say, yes, go to Ukraine, go to YBS or YPG. This is all individual decision. And just like he said, it's your views change a lot throughout the years. You know what I mean? It's important to go and be willing to change and be willing to stand up for what you believe in. I don't know what I'm saying here, but I just wish best of luck to anybody out there. It doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your views are. We all want what's best for the world, and we just have different ideas sometimes. That's all I'd say, man.
That's well said. And I did lie to you. We have a couple more questions, and these are folks that have contributed a little bit of money to the stream. So, first and foremost, I appreciate all of you, and I will say that I do my very best to capture these as soon as we get them. We've just had I've just been very much enjoying the conversation. The first question that I have is from Stedman. Thanks very much for the $10. As someone who speaks German, you had it mostly right to spell it phonetically in English. Oh, this isn't a question. This is a correction of my pronunciation. Thanks very much for the 10. But
what was that?
Sayageist.
Okay.
Saiga, I don't know, man. I'm kind of notorious for my pronunciations of things, and not in a good way. Let me just put it that way. It's, if there's anything that I'll eventually be known for, it's how I cannot, for some reason, and I used to think I was good at it, pronounce some very common words. I do have a question here from Cardic Triceps, though. Thanks for the 217. I'm sorry if it's a stupid question, but did CivDiv hear something about UFOs in Ukraine?
Oh, no, I have not. But in YBS, yes, we saw Starlink. I don't know if you guys know this, but when Starlink goes up in the air, like when it's first launched, like it's like 50 satellites, and for the first couple of weeks they're in a line. We thought that was HIMARS coming for our position. We saw it come from the horizon. They went straight above us. We were freaking the hell out. We ran.
Why would that have been HIMARS coming for your position? Turkish HIMARS.
Possibly. I don't know. That's what,
terrifying.
I had a friend who was an FO. He was an FO, and he was with me. So he was the one who started to panic a little bit.
Well, when your forward observer looks at someone and says, that's HIMARS, it's time to unass. Is what? No thanks on that one. The next question that I have is from Walter. Thanks for the 20. And we kind of covered this a little bit, but it might have been earlier in the stream. What do you think of corruption and mistreatment of volunteers in some branches of the International Legion?
Yeah, no, a lot of questions on that. Look,
Yeah,
I haven't seen too much of that. Nothing I can put my finger on and be like, yes, that was corruption. It's it's humans are going to be humans. Money's involved. I've heard of, like the only thing that I know is that, when you get injured, sometimes your gear will go to somebody else and you don't know where it goes, and then you'll never see it again. That's all I can say to that, to be honest. It's
and
it's
you
very
did
small levels of corruption. Yeah.
And if I recall your answer to the question that I had about that earlier, you didn't really experience any mistreatment yourself of foreign fighters.
Yeah, mistreatment, no. Mistreatment, not at all. It was very, very good. Yeah.
Okay. Andrew, thanks for the 5, and Richie, thank you for the 10. Corey, that's it, buddy. We're all done for the evening. Thanks again for joining us, guys. Please go check out CivDiv. His channel is linked in the stream description, but it's easy. YouTube.com/CivDiv. Super easy. He will be headed back to Ukraine. He joined us today to really hear me blabber on and ask a bunch of questions that I've just had of any international legion or foreign fighter that's fighting in Ukraine. Thanks again for being here, my man, and I appreciate you very much.
Seriously, appreciate it, man. Really do.
Right. Well, we'll get you back on really whenever you're ready, buddy. You've got an open invite, okay?
All right, seriously, appreciate that, dude.
All right, I'm out of here, man. Bye.
All right, see you.
Oh, Ronnieception. Welcome back. All right, guys. So that's it. That was CivDiv. He goes by Corey. Well, I guess his name is Corey, and he goes by CivDiv. He spent time in Ukraine. He has spent time fighting with the Kurds. He spent time in the Marine Corps. Please do go over and check out his channel. He's got a lot of great footage over there, a lot of good insight on the situation that foreign fighters are dealing with in Ukraine, but also good insight from other conflicts around the world. I'm out of here for the night. Thanks for joining us. It was a different structure on the stream today. I'm hoping that we can carry this forward and have more guests like Corey on in the future. But of course, if you guys want to leave a comment on the VOD about what you'd like to see out of the stream, I do read those, and I do go back and check the live chat. I'm going to go over to the other side of the other stream tonight and have a beer, maybe hang out. I don't know what we're going to be doing or what we're going to be talking about, but it's probably going to have something to do with sitting or standing while wiping. I'm out of here. Good night, and stay informed.